1, 2, tak. Okay. Hello, good afternoon. I almost lost my voice, and then I got this little pill that's melting in my mouth, and it should get better. But I just want to ask you for your grace, because I might be in and out, like I'm going through puberty, even though it was a long, time ago. So, my name is Yemi Akinyemi Dele. I am Czech. I'm speaking English just because there are going to be English-speaking guests. Čau, Ostravo! Pro ty z vás, kdo neví, tak mluvím česky úplně plynule, akorát budu tady mluvit anglicky, protože tu máme hosty, kteří anglicky mluví také. Before we get into our panel, the Good Money panel, which I hope you will enjoy, I have the honor to introduce a special guest and patron of this tent, the New York stage. And it's no one else than the US ambassador to the Czech Republic, Bijan Sabat. Please welcome him.
Thank you so much. Dobrý večer. It's good to be here. I am so really excited to be here. This is my first time attending the Colors of Ostrava Festival and the Meltingpot Forum, and all I could say is really wow. I have visited Ostrava many times as the U.S. ambassador, and I've always been so impressed with this amazing city, the innovation, and of course the kindness and the hospitality. So, you know, the United States Embassy here has been partnering with the Colors of Ostrava and Meltingpot since 2016, and we are very much excited to continue this relationship this year. We have our America Wheels tent just outside. Please come by, check it out. A lot of activities there, VR, puzzles, and lots of other great things happening. And this year, we are helping to sponsor this venue, the New York stage. And I want to say to the organizers, thank you so much for taking inspiration from a great American city. I was born and raised in New York, and many of the elements that you're celebrating here today played a big role in shaping me and my life. New York City is known for its diversity of its people, cuisine, languages, art, architecture, as well as the diversity of opportunities it offers. And the spirit of giving that thrives in New York is equally diverse. I'm sure many of you are familiar with some of the iconic philanthropic institutions like the Ford Foundation or the Rockefeller Foundation, as well as newer organizations such as Bloomberg Philanthropies that are continuing the tradition of successful and generous families and individuals. But we're also seeing an expansion of creative forms of giving. We're seeing entrepreneurs that seek new ways to connect donors with projects that they are passionate about. For example, in New York, there is a philanthropic crowdfunding platform called Donors Choose that allows donors to directly fund projects inside the classroom. Or there's a crowdfunding platform called Charity Water started in New York City where donors can fund water projects in Africa and India, and they have a very innovative way for handling the administrative costs of this philanthropy. So every dollar goes 100% to these projects in building out these water facilities. Prior to becoming the U.S. ambassador, I spent my career in the tech sector as a venture capitalist, working with some of the greatest entrepreneurs and founders, building their businesses and jobs and creating value. And I saw up close how the very best, the most extraordinary founders deeply cared about integrating corporate social responsibility into their business, into their culture at the very beginning. Some of them even before they had their first employee or their first customer. As the iconic American investor Warren Buffett famously said, if you are the luckiest 1% of humanity, you owe it to the rest of humanity to think about the other 99%. So I want to thank you all for letting me share a few thoughts before this next panel. I wish you a wonderful evening. Děkuji moc.
Bijan Sabat, thank you so much. And Ned, let's go and dive right in. Please welcome on stage and amazing people, my friends, and amazing philanthropists and people who are really making money to do good things. First of them, Katie Fitzgerald. Hello, Katie. A second is Joshin Raghubar. Hello, hello, hello. Shanem Ryanem. And William Lobkowicz Jr. So, welcome. Those mics are for you. And before, I intentionally did not introduce them because we're going to do this now. And I want to ask you, what would you say that are highlights away from, and what is the highlight of your work? What do you really enjoy doing? Why you do what you do? Concise. We just want to hear from each of you before we dive into what the term good money means. So, Katie, please, if you can share.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here. Thank you for having me. My name is Katie Fitzgerald, and I originally came from Chicago, Illinois, and now I live in Aspen, Colorado. 100% of my work is working with young people. I love to really tap into innovative minds and creative thinking, and that's what I get the honor and joy of doing every day.
And Katie, you should also know, me and Katie, we met under the Aspen Institute organization. She works with young kids, and she is, and high schoolers, she's granting them money, microfinances, and they turn the money into some kind of impact in their own region. It's called Aspen Challenge. I've both part of the Aspen Challenge from Brooklyn. They choose underserved areas. When I went for the first time, maybe 70–80% of the kids were black. There were kids who really were hungry to make a change in their country, in their region, in their village, in their part of city. And this was also the first time I learned that Katie is one of the advisors to the Bezos family and the Bezos Foundation. And that's when I spent my first day with Mike Bezos, the father of Jeff Bezos, which was very inspiring. So some little background. Thank you for sharing with us. Joshin.
Thanks, Yemi. My name is Joshin Raghubar. I am from South Africa. In Cape Town, South Africa is my home. My entire career, if I look back at the arc of my career, has been and continues to be focused on helping develop future-fit, inclusive societies across different African cities, starting off many years ago in my own city of Cape Town. So the work is as an entrepreneur, building our own businesses that have positive impact. I like to think of myself as an impact entrepreneur. And sometimes the best vehicle for that is a for-profit venture, which we build and grow. And sometimes it's a non-profit organization, which I've also led and continued to grow. What really drives me is that I think I see myself as a creative and an artist in many ways. And the act of creating an organization that can have impact for me it's an act of creation, it's an act of art.
Thank you. Shane, tell us about yourself.
Hi, my name's Shanem Ryanem, and I am from the United Kingdom. And there's a kind of rich heritage and kind of culture of giving in the UK that I'll probably talk more about later. Why I like working in this space is because I feel as though everyone who wants to do something pro-social in the world should have an opportunity to be linked with an organization or an individual who maybe wants to finance that. And my work allows me to do that all over the world, and I'm really grateful that I get a chance to do that. Occasionally I get the opportunity to see these projects come to life and the good that they do, and that kind of makes me sleep well at night. So kind of that's me, and that's why I'm here, effectively.
Thank you. I'm also going to... I'm also going to share a little background on Shane. So when we were building Moonshot Platform. Moonshot Platform is why we're here. It's an organization that accelerates young people who are doing social innovation. So whether they are working on building a translator for sign language, so people could talk to each other even without words, or they are trying to reduce emissions of methane, of cows burping and farting, or they are working on social justice, equality, climate change, many different projects. We try to support them and connect them to resources for them to be able to elevate their projects. And when I started, this was an idea, and everybody was like, you know what, it's too complicated. And you know, you go work and then come back when you have something. But it's like the chicken-egg problem. How can you have something if you don't have money to make it? But in order for you to have money to make it, you need to show them that you exist at least 3 years, give them the tax, the tax receipts and all of it. So for the early stage project, it's very hard. And I went to Avast Foundation. You know Avast? Avast, you know, right? It's one of the antivirus Czech companies that merged with Gen, and they created foundation. And you know, it's Czech guys, right? It's Czech guys. So I connected to their foundation, and then I had a meeting with the director of Avast, and there on the other side of the Zoom, there is this black man. And I was like, oh, wow, interesting. From England, from London. I think he was similarly surprised to see me. Maybe yes, maybe no. But long story short, what happened is that I created a presentation. I tried to be as descriptive as possible. Shane asked some questions, and we went through several months back and forth, and eventually we got a donation of $600,000, which brought us from where we were, which was like a couple of conferences, to actually launch this project and be where we are today. It went for 2 years. We were able to do Moonshot Camp, Moonshot Awards, take people from all around the world. We had people apply for 88 countries, Czech people, but also people from Africa and Asia. And we did a lot of good with that money. So it's just something that I feel is very important, because people hardly ever trust young people or people who have ideas that are a little bit out of the box with their money. But Shane is not one of them, so that's something that I wanted to add. William.
Hello.
Thank you.
My name is William Rudolf Lobkowicz. I come from an old Czech noble family which has 700 years of history in this country. We managed collections and historic properties that were lost twice and regained twice, first under Nazi occupation and then under communist occupation. And today we work with an organization called House of Lobkowicz, which our mission is to preserve, study, and share these collections with the world. And today all our historic properties and collections are open to the public. So we're consistently finding ways to share history. And you were asking what my passion is. It's really looking for ways to engage with people and make history come to life.
Amazing. I'm just gonna ask the FOH, jestli můžu poprosit režii, abych nemusel tolik křičet, jestli mi můžete vytáhnout trošku ten zvuk a já snížím hlas. Děkuji moc. 1, 2, 1, 2. Yeah, super. Okay, so I want to start, just lay the ground of like, why should we give money to anybody? Yeah? What is the idea of giving money? What is my idea of giving? Should we be giving? Why are we giving? And then who in the world is giving most? And who in the world, the concept of giving is like a strange thing. Yeah? And where are we as Czech people? What do you think? If I show you like this, where do you think we are when it comes to giving? When you think about the world, how different countries, different nations, different cultures give, on a range of 0 to 10, where is Czech Republic? I'm gonna, no pressure, but I want to know from you. 8.5, 9, 6, 7. Huh? What did they say? 2. Show your faces. Who said 2? 2. You okay? Great. Very soon we're gonna discuss it, and then I come with a microphone, because it's interesting to see, right? Maybe it's also different between Prague and Ostrava and Brno, and you know, like we have different, but I also have my own opinion, but I won't say it yet. I'm gonna ask them what they think, and then we're gonna come back to you, yeah? So, first, why are we giving? Why are we not just selling and buying? What's the concept about?
I'll take it.
Go for it.
So the lens I'm going to put on everything that we talk about and why I'm on this panel is to give people a chance of a certain age. You know, so I'm focused on young people and some of our brightest minds, and I would argue the most untapped resource we have, not only in the United States, but most certainly in Czech as well. I've met some of your incredible young people as part of the Moonshot Camp this week, is they don't have a voice. They don't have an option. They don't have an opportunity. And, you know, as Yemi said, sometimes our young people don't necessarily know how to ask for money or don't even know that they can. So when we're starting at that basic level, when we're talking about microfinance, we're not talking about investments that are going to send people to the moon. We're talking about investments that are going to give people not only the confidence and the efficacy to know that they have what it takes to create change and to know that they're believed in and that their voice matters, but also it could be a really good investment in the long run. So when we're talking about the microfinance, I think it's extremely important to have a little bit of blind faith. It's to take a chance, to take a risk, and to understand that what you're investing in is not necessarily just that particular idea. You're investing in that person, and you're investing in that generation, and you're giving really, truly the belief in these young people that they have what it takes and they can do it. So I feel very, very strongly that it's something that we all should be doing, whether you are, you know, in a certain philanthropic category or even a lower philanthropic category. Invest in a young person next to you or invest in several, and we're going to see the world become a better place because, in my humble opinion, they do have the best ideas.
Thank you. Joshin.
Yeah, I think there's, you know, the act of giving and philanthropy and non-profit organizations or social entrepreneurs, we really fill the gap that, frankly, where the market fails, right? Where there's market failure. And there's a place where the state is not able to deliver. And these are many, and there are many fields of contribution to society, to the human endeavor, to human flourishing, to conservation, that are very powerful goods that should be valued, but the current economic systems simply don't reward them. And this is the space that I think philanthropy kind of really shines through and enables.
Thank you. Thank you.
And actually, I would maybe just one to add to that is that if you track back on the rise of charitable foundations or giving in a formalized, institutionalized way, it really almost, the growth of it almost mirrors the growth of capitalism and capital markets. So a lot of the growth of giving institutions and charitable organizations or nonprofits have actually really had to fill the gap of market failures through to capitalism. And so it's probably it's part of the shadow of a market system.
Thank you. I want to ask you, can you understand? Is the volume okay? Yeah, you can hear everything? Okay, just show me if not. Shane, what do you think?
So, in the UK, for instance, there's a massive and long history of giving that goes way back.
I just want to stop
Yeah.
you. I forgot to say, I think you were rewarded by the Queen, right?
What's that got to do with anything?
No, I want people to know. I now just remembered for your work in UK.
Yeah.
What's the title?
No, it's like it's a King's Award because the Queen
Award.
The Queen's passed, sadly, and it's a King's Award for services to young people in the community.
Beautiful. I think this could also be inspiration for our concept here within the philanthropic work, because we have some medals being given, but Yeah. It just popped in my mind. I'm sorry to interrupt
Well,
you.
no, that was my point. I mean, there's a long, rich history of giving in the UK. I think, I'm sure Sarah's in here somewhere.
Yeah,
so I
Sarah
can't get this wrong. I think I mean, if you look back at the 15th century, there's a concept called almsgiving back then, right? See, I've got it right. See, so, and so it goes way back. And if you look at most other countries, rightly or wrongly, and the UK, so I'll give you an example. In the UK at the moment, the charity sector itself accounts for over 90 billion pounds a year, so which is huge, and I don't think there are many countries that match that. I mean, obviously, the US is about just over $1 trillion are given a year, and I know some of the. By the way, you're looking at me, you're wondering about what happens here in Czech Republic. I think it's around 13.5 million Czech crowns a year that are given away. So, so in the UK, it's an industry. It's huge, and I think there's an understanding of. I think some of that is about the fact that the UK has rights to wrong historically around the world, and it tries to do some of that. But the rest of it is I think an understanding of the fact that we are all connected around the world, and what happens and affects one community affects us all technically. And I think on top of that, there's also a realization that if we as individuals and as communities don't look after those that are most vulnerable in our communities, it says a lot about who we are as a wider community. And so for me, that's why I think that we give effectively.
Beautiful. Thank you.
So.
I will sneak in a question within the question, because I know William and his family for some time. We're friends, and I know that it's not easy, because when money is being given to arts, people are like, yeah, like our gas is expensive, right? We will not go through the winter, or we have, I don't know, homeless people, and like, why are we giving to arts? And then there is this fragile kind of relationship between like the royals or the noble family and the people, and you've already lost everything twice. So I feel like the public opinion about like, is it right, is it wrong, should it happen, shouldn't it happen, I think it has to be on the mind of your father and yourself. So how have you developed this relationship to this narrative and giving from your perspective as an heir?
I think it's really about storytelling and showing people exactly where funds go and having people have a better understanding of what our work looks like. Obviously, for a family, it's quite difficult to say, why should I support this noble family who have all these nice castles, paintings, and all this lovely art? And I think it's about helping people understand the circumstances by which we're working at the moment. So for instance, most of our funding we do through fundraising that we do outside of the Czech Republic. We have some grants that we receive, but that's what allows our collections to operate so that we can open them all up to the public as well. And keeping in mind that it might sound like a lovely luxury, and if to have a castle or a palace, it's not fun. If you'd like a castle, let me know. We'll be more than happy to give you one. It's a lot of work. And I think what's key is helping people understand what goes into the care of culture and why that's so important. Because culture is very often the thing that is cut immediately or first when it comes to a pandemic or whatever it may be. But the value of culture to generate communities, to get people excited around their arts and culture is really quite remarkable. And now with one project we've been doing in particular around the birth house of Antonín Dvořák in Nelahozoves, for instance, we've completely restored this space to create a museum dedicated to his life. And what's been incredible is looking at how that has changed the community around there as well. Different businesses that can be supported, restaurants, tourism. They're repairing the sidewalks, taking pride in your culture and knowing that it's something where you come from. Because without our culture, we have nothing. You can't have a state, you can't have a country. It's really what makes us who we are here today, which is always why I'm such a big supporter of this. There are obviously incredibly important causes to support people's health, and I think there's a long history in this country of people actually donating to those causes and supporting too. But I think culture is what is our guiding force that can really support us in whatever endeavors we take on in the future.
Thank you. So I promise we get back to the question of who is giving in the world the most, the least. So can you just give us like, what are your notions? I'm sure all of you have traveled. Who you think is, you already went for it, Shane, so you're off the hook. William, who is giving a lot example of a country and who is giving
in
not
the world?
so much? Yeah, yeah. Where philanthropy is like a part of the culture and where it's like a strange concept.
I'd say
Opinion.
In my opinion, I see a huge history of philanthropy in the United States, actually. And this comes from, I think, a different government model that I see here in the Czech Republic. In Europe especially, there are many grants that exist, state funding that support different endeavors. That exists in the United States as well. But there's a great history of private philanthropy. And even with our own endeavors, this has been helpful to us too.
Joshin?
Yeah, it's a tricky question, Yemi, because I'm not sure who measures that. Because in my experience, really marginalized, poorer communities probably give a high percentage of their earnings
Of what they have.
what they have to each other, to support each other. And actually, it may not be, like the nominal amount may be less, but the percentage is far greater than many, many wealthy communities or societies. So the framing of the question is, I'm not sure what you're asking.
Yeah, no. Actually, this is great because they say that, like, how do you know you give enough? And people always say, you give enough when you feel it, right? If you give and you don't even know about it, then maybe you're not giving enough. But if you give enough that it really, like, you feel you've given a portion, then, so actually, the reframing of it is important, and it's not about the sum. It's not about the sum for the country, but it's maybe about the percentage or the circumstance that maybe the giving not only happen through an official channels, but also giving between people, and that's exactly where I want to go. Katie, what's your opinion?
I would. I'll agree with William on this. I think it is the United States of America. There's not only a lot of philanthropy by individual donors, but also private family foundation, I think, are trending to be giving a lot more. And plus our government structure and our tax structure allows and promotes for people to really focus on concentrating on giving away a lot of their wealth in order to support different causes that are true to their heart. So, and then based on the statistics that we just heard by Shane, I think I would say the United States.
Great. Now that you mentioned that people are now, there are more and more cases where people are giving most of their wealth. I don't know if you've heard about it, but I've met several people who have like earned billions through their life, and then they hire a manager around their 50s that structure a way how to spend the money before they die. There's also a book, it's called Die with Zero. I met the author of the book, he's from Austin, and his name is Bill Perkins, and he describes how money passed down to your family members can actually ruin their life, can ruin the next generations of people, and how it is healthy to actually spend everything so you die with zero. Interesting concept. But before we dive deeper, we had number 2 here for Czech Republic, and I'm so curious to hear why is Czech Republic on a scale 0 to 10, number 2 in giving. Hello, what's your name?
Alena.
Alena, what do you think? And you can check English, I'm happy to translate.
It's from experience, from my colleagues at work. When they should give something, they always have many reasons why they need more the money for themselves than give it up.
Yeah, well, I believe that all of us, we have faced this moment, and at work or and it's absolutely relevant. And I don't want to be shaming anybody here for 6, for 8, for 2. I'm just curious. So who here was 6 There was 6 here, no? Oh, here? There was 6. Hello, I love your outfit. So cool.
It's from Tokyo.
Nice, I love
Thank
Tokyo.
you.
What is
Yeah,
your
me too.
name?
Michala.
Michala, why do you think Czech is 6?
I think it's sometimes like in the middle. Like I fully agree with Alana, but on the other side, I feel like that if something really happened, like for example, the war in Ukraine will just started, that we really are able to support at the moment and just started to giving. So I think like I feel it like
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because when we give individually, sometimes if nobody is looking, we are like, oh, no, 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 no. But then when there is this big notion and we should just go for it, go to the square and, you know, do something, we actually rally together and we find the support for the little girl who was sick, the 100 million crowns fundraised within a week, right? Or in the time of pandemic. So there were some great examples. And who was here at the 8 or 9? This table over here is believers in the Czech dream.
A couple of proud Czechs and Americans over here, because I've seen the statistics. I know the numbers. As a percentage of the income, the Czech Republic blows most of Europe away. We don't got a lot, but we're willing to give, especially if there's free beer involved. Free beer? Anybody got free beer?
Thank you. What was your name?
I'm Michael.
Michael, thank you for that contribution. So you can see that we are looking at it. Oh, yeah. We will need servers to give us some beer. As you can see, so there are very different point of views. And for my personal opinion, I would lean into the fact that there is maybe big percentage of Czech people who don't want to give, and a smaller percentage of people who give a lot. Like that's my just opinion. There is no statistics that I'm reading. It's just when I go around the world and I fundraise, for example, in India, it's by law that you must choose the charity and give 2% of your profit. It's just a law. So there is this big competition between the charities to get the big companies to donate to them. And I think it's, for me, India is one of the most giving and sharing between each other. And on the other side, I think the concept of giving is very strange to Chinese. Because when we are trying to push for moonshot in China, there is more work to explain the culture, to explain why. And I think it's not to shame anyone. It's just somewhere it's just an early stage of philanthropy. And somewhere like in the States, even though States is a very new country, the philanthropy has been strong from the very beginning. All right, so the next topic is about money and how good money. I think all of us, we can imagine all the terrible things that money has cost. The blood money, the black money, when you speak money, for many of us, the relationship to money makes our life very difficult. I have to say myself, I was born in the 80s. My mom was a single mother. We never really had much. And I always felt like money is the problem. And I always thought like I'm going to do art and I'm not going to care about money. Fortunately, money was always somehow coming because of my work. But I'm realizing now when I'm older that I really had a problem to ask for money. I would be fundraising and I felt like my skin is going to crawl if I have to ask somebody for money. And it took me a long time to understand that when I'm doing project like Moonshot platform, that I'm not asking for myself, but that I'm asking for money for an institution or for certain channels to open and so on and so on. And I realized that this relationship is really rooted in my early years of my life. So I want to use part of this discussion to paint a different picture on money, which is the good money. Because money is just money. It's the energy in hands of people, and the people make it flow one way or another. So what for you is the example, a great case study, please be very, very specific, where there are good money. And I start with William.
Where we've seen good impact of money being put towards something? Yeah, you're putting me on the spot, Yemi, because there are many. come back to me if you,
I
if you
will.
can, please. I need a
They
second.
asked for questions before, and I said no way.
No way, yeah.
So we have to give grace. So anybody else wants to answer? Go for it, Shane.
Okay, I work in an environment where lots of money is given out daily
So
to the tune
how
of
much?
millions. A year or
Per year.
about 700 million
Okay,
pounds a year.
a year.
Yeah,
And you are part of the decision-making process of who should get the money?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So there are lots of really great examples in there of money. I mean, but what I'd like to do is really quickly say, one, obviously Moonshot is a good example, straight off the bat, of money well spent, as far as I'm concerned anyway. But also, around that same time, we funded another project that involved Atlanta schools in the US, working alongside the University of Nairobi to create an app that allowed young people in Atlanta to work alongside students in Nairobi and learn Swahili, right?
Wow.
So, and I couldn't get my head around the concept at first because I'm a bit old, a bit of a Luddite, but eventually when I began to see footage of the young people that were in Atlanta who had not taken a language at all initially, now speaking Swahili to me, I couldn't understand what they were saying, by the way, but they were saying, speaking Swahili to me online, I recognized the value of that. Now, some of you may say, well, Swahili, why would they speak that language? But I don't know if you're aware of the fact that in Africa, more than 200 million people speak that language. And so in a growing economy, which it is, it's a valuable asset for people coming into that space, especially from the US. So for me, that's it was an opportunity for us as an organization. But when we look back at it and we look at the young people who've not only learnt the language there, but also begun to teach it to others, it's kind of that money that keeps on giving. So because we haven't put any more money into it, but they found other ways to finance it, and it's continued on. So, and I think that's a great example for me of where our money's gone, and is still yielding fruit.
I will use the opportunity of giving a little bit more time to our panelists and ask you one more question. What is really interesting, and I just want to share it with you, is the power dynamics of your meetings. When I first spoke to Shane, it was always like I've never had this type of meeting and power dynamics. You know, when you come to ask somebody for money, you're like this. Yeah, you're like this. You're like, ah. And then they make you, jump through things, climb and go down and up and fill in this, fill in that. They make you work for the money. And it's almost, sometimes it can be humiliating. Sometimes it can be like it takes you away from your work. You're doing your work, but then if you want the money for the work, you actually have to start another work. So, and the first conversation with you was like no, there is equality. You are bringing something we need. We're just having money. It's the same. It's not like this. Can you just explain like this concept? Because I think in Czech Republic it's a little bit strange. I have never experienced this type of power dynamics when someone was holding the money and someone not in Czech Republic. So how and why?
Okay, I'll try and do that. So basically, I think that for a long time, there's been a huge power imbalance in philanthropy. So if you want money, then there's an understanding that you have to sing and dance for it, right? So you have to come in, you have to have your pitch, you might have to have 2 or 3 pitches, you might have to fill in a load of forms, it might go on over 6 months to a year, and then you may still be told no. But it's a very old and cap-in-hand model. And what it leads people to do is it leads people to pander to the whims of those that are providing the money, as opposed to looking at what they want to do themselves. So sometimes you find situations in which people will say, you'll say to them, what's your primary function? What is it you want to do? And the minute they tell the funder what it is, the funder will say, I don't like that. What else have you got? And then the people will switch and go, well, I've got this other thing I do here. And it becomes a back and forth until effectively what you're doing is you're just supplying the funder with what they want to do, often when they have no expertise or understanding of what's needed in that particular community. And so good money follows bad. You're talking about good money and bad money. Good money follows bad money into those spaces, and it's usually led by the funders as opposed to beneficiaries and people in the communities. So our approach has always been that we want to level the playing field. And I think it's partly our decision, but also there's been a real pushback from organizations who say, well, hold on a minute. If we come with things and you don't like them, what gives you the right to change them? Is there an opportunity here for us to co-design things and work together in the space, rather than this power imbalance where you decide what you're going to fund because you've got the money? And I think that historically, as funders, people have derived their sense of self-importance from the money they have. So they feel good about making you squirm, about making you dance for the money. And that's just become an inherent part of the process. And it really shouldn't be, because it's... So when we met with Yemi is bringing something to the table that's really important to him. And we have money that might finance that. And we need to have a dialogue. It's not us barking at him and telling him, like jump up and down, you know, spin around, dance for me, show me how... That doesn't work. I mean, it makes people feel good sometimes, but it doesn't work for our wider communities. And so we tried to adopt a way of working that was fairly egalitarian and allowed people to tell us what they thought. Not just what they thought about the projects, but also what they thought about our approach.
Thank you.
Hopefully that's... So.
Joshin.
I'd like to build on that, because your question was an example of good money, and I think this is a really important quality of good money. You know, there's quite a big difference between charity and justice. Right? Charity often is about giving money, but on your own terms. You retain power, and it's really about giving money in your own terms. Justice looks at quite different. It's about a sharing of power, about this empathy, about a sharing of power. You know, there was a Brazilian priest many decades ago used to say, you know, when I feed the poor, they call me a saint. When I ask why people are poor, they call me a communist. Right? And that's the difference between charity and justice. Justice looks at systems change and really thinks about making sure that people never get to the point where they're hungry. So, and that's an important quality of good money. And I think there's starting to be a growing trend in the world of philanthropy and this movement away from charitable giving in the old style to really about empathy and connection and sharing of power. It shouldn't be the case where often the end beneficiary is the last mile in the delivery. How do we make sure the end beneficiary is the first mile and telling you what they need, right? Because they know best, actually, how to change their circumstances. And it's very paternal for us to assume we know better. So that's the one element of good money. The second bit I want to talk about as we build on this thinking around justice and systems is that, you know, historically, and I think even today, a lot of giving and well-intentioned money is about really focused on giving money to a program with an outcome and a delivery that can be measured. But the real change is often in those catalytic interventions, things that can actually bring together business, government, society, and orchestrate across an entire system to mobilize different people to create systemic change. So really good money seeks out system orchestrators and trusts them to deliver and come up and convene and mobilize people who can deliver actual programs that ultimately results in systems change. Now, what that means is you've often got to think about reframing funding to being annual. You've got to start thinking about long-term commitments to systems change, to system orchestrators. You have to probably give away your power and say, maybe you know better, and actually finding solutions that work for society is an emergent process. And emerges means you actually have to allow for very little restrictions, unrestricted capital over 5 years or 10 years, and long-term support allows system orchestrators to have an incredible catalytic effect. And the Skoll Foundation recently has been putting some money into understanding the role of system orchestrators, ecosystem developers. And they've found that the highest rate of return to philanthropic giving is to system orchestrators. People are going to have a catalytic effect. A small amount of money, a meaningful amount of money, can have a catalytic effect. Now, I'll give you an example from an organization that I've been involved from. We started it 25 years ago. We have set out to build these inclusive future-fit societies, convening and orchestrating across business, government, and society. And we've grown the organization, and we have a lot of people over 25 years, and our budget, and we deliver many, many programs that helps thousands of entrepreneurs every year. We place thousands of people into technology jobs from underprivileged communities. But those are the programs. The core essence of why this all works is our system orchestration. And out of the $14 million budget we have annually, I would say if $400,000 goes to the system orchestration work is a lot. And just imagine how much more catalytic work we could be doing and crowding in all those programs if there was money at the center to capacitate the system orchestration work. Now, let's talk about who's doing good work in that space. You asked for very specific examples. So the Skoll Foundation has started this journey about funding evidence-based research into saying this is how we should support system orchestrators. And have recently, together with Nandan Nilikani, who started Infosys, set up a Center for Exponential Change to really just focus on supporting system orchestrators and in the launch of this Center for Exponential Change, which was in April this year, they've already starting to work together with organizations that are system orchestrators that are impacting 1 billion people each over time through systems change. So there is good money. I think the qualities are, one, it really should have a quality about justice. It needs to think about systems. It needs to trust and share power in the giving. I think it needs to really focus on catalytic change and support system orchestrators in new ways. So that's good.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sorry, can I just add a point to that? What Joshin is describing there is what we call trust-based philanthropy.
Trust-based philanthropy.
Yeah, just so people have an idea of how to talk about all of that, all of the stuff that we were just talking about there. It's the kind of basis of trust-based philanthropy.
Yeah,
sorry.
That's how I felt when we were granted the money, and we made the budget, but then the budget changed. And normally, from what we know from Czech Republic, we were scared because we thought if we allocate the money here, that they're gonna take it back. It's not gonna work. And none of that happened. They were like, no, just be transparent, show us why, explain us why, write a letter, that's all we want. We will not ask you. You know best what you do. Very, very inspiring. I hope we will bring some of it back home. If William or Katie wants to add to this?
I'm ready now. I actually have something that relates to this. Because I think good money can also be something that can be a catalyst for change, which will then help something grow much more. And maybe it finds its own pace and way to fund itself as well. And it can be a tiny influx of money. And one great example, I have to go to the arts and culture, which is my love, is there's this gentleman who's half Nigerian, half British, named Chidi Nwabani. And he started this great program called Ludi Art. And one very topical discussion right now is the restitution of the Benin bronzes, which are in the British Museum, back to what was then the Kingdom of Benin, but is now modern-day Nigeria. And he created this concept where he needed funding initially to get a 3D scanner. He went into the British Museum, scanned the Medine bronzes, and then took them back. In a way, he looted it. He wasn't doing anything illegal. He scanned these bronzes, and then he worked with different Nigerian artists to create new designs with that Benin bronze as a base, and then found a new way of creating funding for different artists and creatives back in Nigeria. And it's a great example of how maybe a small amount of good money can lead to a huge amount of change that can impact a community and a society. And it's that exponential growth that I find so exciting about some of these use cases.
Beautiful. Thank you.
I'd like to add to that, Yemi, because it's interesting when you think about these catalytic effects of supporting system orchestrators. You know, normal impact measure, the conventional measures of impact, which is an outcome and a number of jobs, etc., are actually not that useful in supporting these types of interventions. So I think it is a challenge, and we've got to find ways to measure change that creates positive change. And we've got to find new ways to measure change that creates change. And then be able to tell the storytelling around that to support the giving into that space.
Amazing. Thank you. Katie.
Okay, I think good money is, has multiple meanings, but something that's a trend that I see in some of the communities I work with, because we do work so closely with the Bezos Family Foundation, they're very clear about the mission of all of their philanthropic efforts. They're 100% focused on education.
May I just ask you,
yes.
I know that it's not so long time ago that Bezos family put aside a sum of money that's supposed to be distributed philanthropically over the years.
Yes.
Can you tell us what the sum is?
I don't know the exact sum that's going to be distributed throughout the years. Yeah,
Okay,
so I don't
okay.
have the exact amount that's going to be distributed throughout the years.
But I think it's one of the most significant donors today.
Yes, one of the best. Yes, absolutely. And they also fund early childhood brain development, and so I know there were. I think it was about $89 billion that they give to a local hospital in New York to focus on early childhood brain development. But I think a misconception about asking for money is you don't always have to go to the Bezos Family Foundation. You don't have to go to the people with the most money. And us, as I'm not in the same category as a Bezos family, but I also can activate local community organizations that have a lot less money and are maybe a lot less known. You need to go to them. We need to actually work together to make sure that we're going to community organizations, local organizations, other areas that we can access good money. Because I do believe the Bezos Family Foundation is intentional and gives away good money, but so do local organizations. And we're talking about small investments that have a huge impact. And if I may give one example, and this is a program, the Aspen Challenge that I run at the Aspen Institute, and this is about a very small investment that had a huge impact on the city of Chicago. We challenged a team of high school students, and they were all black high school students on the south side of Chicago, to create a culture of trust between law enforcement and young people of color. Because our Department of Justice just issued a report making it very clear and very well known that there's racial profiling going on between the Chicago Police Department and some of our communities of color. Most of the Chicago Police Department is white cops. So what these kids did, they went into an untrusting environment, and they partnered with white police officers that kind of looked at these kids and said, what are you doing here? Why are you coming to our weekly meetings? What's your game? What are you up to? And they said, we're not up to anything. Here's what we're trying to do. And as soon as these young high school students said, we are trying to literally change the face of racial profiling in our city, the cops dropped everything they were doing and they worked with these kids. There are some bad police officers, and there are maybe some kids that aren't so bad, but the people that came together, the majority of both of those parties just had a mistrust with each other. So they formed relationships, they formed a bond, they formed a program and wrote a curriculum that was taught at the school in the south side of Chicago in the Bronzeville community that is now taught at Chicago Public Schools, the third largest school district in the United States of America, on how to break down the culture of racial profiling and ignite a culture of trust with people that you may not trust. That was started with $500. This team of high school students had $500 and literally changed the face and the pathway for not only themselves, but every school in Chicago that is predominantly African American, black and brown kids in low-income communities. So $500 can make that amount of change. And so those are things that we all need to be thinking about. And we all need to, I think, be holding our big philanthropic communities, organizations, donors, to the carpet too. I think we need to be asking real questions and saying, what are you doing? Where are you at? What is your mission vision? So you don't have to go to them and change what you're doing just to get the money to start something. You know, we all just need to be in more alignment. And you know, my relationship with the Bezos Family Foundation, they very much are against changing anything that they do or asking you to change anything that you're doing if it's not a fit. So I think those are really important points about good money, and not that much money can have a huge, huge change to a group of students that had $0. We gave them $500, and this still goes on today, and it's been going on for 10 years in the city of Chicago.
Thank you. I have a friend in Chicago, Pete Cadence. I visit him often, and I know how Chicago is troubled with gun violence. His kids are at school, and there would be days where there was a shooting at school, and they would just keep the kids home, and the kids are asking, hey, Daddy, can this happen in my school? Sometimes in one weekend there is more shooting incidents than in Czech Republic in 10 years. So I think that I just want to bring the context of why this work is so important, because when you speak about police race profiling, I don't even think people here kind of understand like how is this done. So it's just two very, very different worlds. So wow, wasn't this great? I will allow for a question, maybe one or two, because we have to wrap it up, even though I could be here asking questions for another couple of hours. Yes. Michael, was it Michael?
It's Michael.
Nice, Michael.
The melting pot this year is mostly focused on AI, which is very disappointing over your heads, by the way.
Yeah.
The promise of AI is fantastic, but there's also the prospect of incredible job loss. We hear phrases like universal basic wage, basic living income, etc. This is a big question for 2 minutes, but how are charities going to adapt to a future where half the population is getting government funding just to meet their daily needs?
Interesting. We have a time for one answer from one member of the team. Joshin?
I can attempt that. That's a very broad question, and we could probably have a full day. And maybe Meltingpot next year can do that. So you are right. I think there's going to be so much disruption, and in ways we actually simply can't imagine. And I think the main challenge we have, and it's not just a challenge that's created by AI, it's actually a challenge that we've really been feeling for many decades, probably since the 70s, is that our current social contract, and the way we think about how the world works and our economies work as we move from feudalism to the industrial era, was that governments create the environment for the economy to work and for businesses to flourish. Businesses innovate, grow, invest, and then hire people as they grow, right? And people get skilled, and they do their jobs well. They pay their taxes, and they vote, right? Really the key point here is that the economic growth and labor absorption move at the same rate and grow at the same rate. And and frankly, that link broke probably in the 70s through automation and then financialization of markets. And and now increasingly through technology, and it's definitely going to accelerate in ways we can't imagine as new technologies come on board. And I think really some of these things, you talk about UBI and et cetera, I think what we're talking about here is that, frankly, like labor power from an earnings perspective, and as a consequence, even from a political voice perspective, and, is being removed from the market slowly but surely, right, as a percentage of economic growth. And what that means is, you know, even in the US and in developed markets, let alone where I come from in many parts of Africa, you know, many decades ago, a single parent, single income earner, rather than, is what I mean, could, you know, put their kids through college, have a home, have a retirement. Today, it's very difficult for millennials and young people, whether it's in the US or Europe, et cetera, and their incomes barely kind of get them from month to month, right? And that's because labor actually accrues less income if you ladder up the whole economy, and it's made it really difficult for people. And when I think about the work I do, it's really about trying to bring more freedom into the world. And freedom is about agency and dignity. And one of the economic levers for more freedom and more agency and more dignity is the ability to develop and accrue assets, right? It's part of the almost like development 101. Give people equity in their homes or financial assets, because beyond your wage, which gets you through the month, assets is what allows you to retire, grow your wealth in whatever way. So what we're talking about there is, one is like income, like, well, I have a job. But what we are currently grappling with is it's very difficult for people to start to develop and form capital assets or financial assets, which is about freedom and dignity and agency. So as we move into this new transition, because AI and all these are going to accelerate these things, we've really got to reimagine the social contract, this link between labor and economic growth, labor and income, whether that's a UBI or finding new ways to reward and recognize productivity and contribution, right? And there are many examples we currently have, whether it's raising a family, it's whatever it is that actually isn't economically rewarded. So how do we imagine new and figure out new proxies for productivity and reward that? And I think what the world needs is, as we move through this space, it's, of course, we need practitioners, social entrepreneurs, philanthropists, bureaucrats. We need policymakers. But we really need our poets and artists, because as we transition to this new space, it's about imagination. It's about giving us touchstones to help us navigate through the fog. And so I don't have a good answer of, what are we going to do and how does charities support that? But I do think there's a space and attention that needs to be paid to reimagination, to bring creativity, some soulfulness, to thinking about and reimagining the social contract. So I guess what I'm saying is we need more poetry.
Thank you. So this was wonderful. I thank you for being with us here. I think we learned a lot about different faces of good money. Good money when they help us to survive. Good money that help us to learn. Good money is help us to find people who help other people. Good money that help us accelerate into a better future. Thank you very much. Katie Fitzgerald, Joshin Raghubar, Shane Ryan, and William Lobkowicz Jr. Thank you.